the envelope was thin. Too thin to contain answers to 32 years of questions. But when I opened it and saw the photocopy of the check, dated March 15, 1992, made out to Linda Hartwell for exactly $10,000, I understood that some truths don't need many words. My birth mother sold me. And when I finally stood face to face with her in that restaurant 3 months ago, when I asked her if she had any regrets, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Why would I? It was the best decision I ever made." This is the story of how I found the woman who gave birth to me, and how I learned that sometimes, the family you're searching for is the one you should have left buried. My name is Sarah Mitchell. At least, that's the name on my birth certificate, the amended one, the one my adoptive parents filed when I was 3 days old. Somewhere in a sealed file in the Massachusetts State Archives, there's another birth certificate with a different name. A name I would never be called. A name that belonged to a version of me that only existed for 72 hours. I grew up in a suburb of Boston, in a white colonial house with blue shutters and a maple tree in the front yard that turned the most spectacular shade of crimson every October. My parents, my real parents, the ones who raised me, were good people. Dad was an accountant. Mom taught elementary school. They told me I was adopted when I was 5 years old, sitting on the living room couch with a picture book about different types of families. Some families are made through birth, my mom had said, her voice gentle but steady, and some families are made through love and choice. We chose you, Sarah. We wanted you more than anything in the world. I remember touching her face, the way children do, studying the differences between us. Her eyes were hazel. Mine were dark brown, almost black. Her hair was stick straight. Mine formed tight curls that she never quite figured out how to manage. But none of that mattered because she was my mom. She was the one who sang me to sleep and bandaged my scraped knees and taught me how to read before kindergarten. For most of my childhood, the adoption was just a fact. Like having brown eyes or being left-handed, interesting, but not defining. My parents were open about it. They answered my questions honestly, age-appropriately. They never hid the truth or made it shameful. But around age 12, something shifted. Puberty, probably. Identity formation. The universal adolescent question of who am I, that becomes infinitely more complicated when half your genetic history is a blank page. I started asking more questions. What did she look like? Why did she give me up? Does she ever think about me? Did she want to keep me? My parents told me what they knew, which wasn't much. Private adoption. No agency involved, just a lawyer who specialized in gray market adoptions, connecting birth mothers with adoptive families, all technically legal but operating in the shadows of the system. They'd met my birth mother once, briefly, in the lawyer's office when she was 8 months pregnant. She was young, 19, and seemed scared. She'd signed the papers. They'd paid the lawyer's fees and the medical expenses, which was standard. And 3 weeks later, I was born, and I was theirs. She wanted a better life for you, my mom always said. That's the most loving choice a mother can make. I believed that for a long time. I needed to believe it. I want you to understand something about adoptees. We're not all the same. Some of us have no interest in our biological origins. Some of us are content with the families we have, no questions asked. And that's valid. That's their story. But for others, for me, there's this absence. It's not always painful. It's not always conscious. But it's there. Like a room in your house you've never entered, a door you walk past every day. You can live your whole life without opening it. Many people do. But you always know it's there. I had a good life. I went to college, got a degree in marketing, landed a decent job at a tech startup in Cambridge. I dated, made friends, traveled. I had therapy for the normal amount of young adult angst. I called my parents every Sunday. I was, by most measures, well-adjusted. And yet, there were moments when the absence became presence. When I got engaged at 28 to a man named Daniel, kind, stable, boring in the best way. And I looked at wedding vendors asking for family medical history on their questionnaires. When I had a miscarriage at 30 and the doctor asked if there was any genetic history of fertility issues I should know about. When I looked in the mirror and wondered whose nose I had, whose laugh, whose tendency toward anxiety and perfectionism. The wedding didn't happen, by the way. Daniel and I broke up 6 months before the date, mutual and amicable, both of us recognizing we were more comfortable than in love. The miscarriage healed, physically at least. Life continued. But the questions remained. When I turned 32 last year, I made a decision. It wasn't dramatic or impulsive. I just woke up one morning and thought, I want to know. Not necessarily to have a relationship. Not to disrupt anyone's life. Just to know. To see the face that gave me this face. To hear the voice that might sound like mine. To fill in the blanks, even partially. I started with the basics. Massachusetts law had changed in 2008, allowing adoptees to access their original birth certificates once they turned 18, unless the birth parent had filed a disclosure veto. I requested mine in January of last year. The process took 6 weeks. When the envelope arrived, my hands shook as I opened it. There, in black and white, was my original name, Emma Rose Hartwell. Emma. I whispered it out loud, feeling the shape of it. Emma Rose Hartwell. Born March 15, 1992, at 6:47 a.m. Mother, Linda Catherine Hartwell, age 19. Father, unknown. Seeing her name, Linda, made her real in a way she'd never been before. She wasn't just my birth mother, an abstract concept. She was Linda Hartwell. A person who existed. Who might still exist. Finding people in the internet age is both easier and harder than you'd think. Easier because of the digital footprints we all leave, social media, public records, white pages. Harder because Linda Hartwell isn't exactly unique. And harder still because people change names through marriage, move across state lines, disappear into the vast anonymity of modern life. I started with Facebook, naturally. Typed in Linda Hartwell and got dozens of results. I filtered by age, she'd be 51 now. And by location, starting with Massachusetts, then expanding to New England, then the entire East Coast. I scrolled through profile pictures, looking for something, anything, that might resonate. A face that looked like mine. A biographical detail that matched. Nothing. I tried LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I checked property records and voter registrations. I found several Linda Hartwells of approximately the right age, but none that I could definitively connect to the woman who gave birth to me in March of 1992 in Boston. I was about to give up, or at least pause, when I remembered something a friend had mentioned once. Ancestry DNA. Those genetic testing kits where you spit in a tube and mail it off and get back information about your ethnicity, your health predispositions, and, crucially, your relatives. I ordered a kit in March. Got the results in May. The ethnicity breakdown was interesting, 62% West African, 18% Irish, 12% Native American, 8% scattered European, but what I really cared about was the relative matching. The system had found 3 close matches, 1 second cousin, and 2 third cousins. The second cousin was listed as D. Martin 1979. The profile was sparse, no photo, no family tree. But there was a message function. I agonized over what to say for 3 days before finally writing. Hi, this is probably strange, but my name is Sarah Mitchell and I was adopted at birth in 1992. I'm trying to find information about my biological family. According to our DNA match, we're second cousins. I don't want to intrude on your life or ask for anything unreasonable. I'm just trying to understand where I come from. If you're willing to share any information, I'd be incredibly grateful. I hit send before I could overthink it further. For 2 weeks, nothing. I checked my messages obsessively, multiple times a day, each time feeling a little more foolish. Maybe D. Martin 1979 didn't check the site regularly. Maybe they'd seen the message and decided not to respond. Maybe. And then, one evening in late May, there it was. A response. Sarah, I think I might know who you are. Or who your mother is. Can we talk on the phone? Her name was Diana Martin, and she was, as I'd guessed from the username, 45 years old. She lived in Rhode Island, worked as a nurse, had 3 kids and a husband. And her mother and Linda Hartwell had been first cousins, which made Diana and Linda second cousins, which made Diana and me second cousins once removed. We spoke on the phone on a Tuesday evening. I sat in my apartment in Cambridge, lights dimmed, notepad ready, heart hammering. I'm going to be honest with you, Diana said, her voice warm but cautious. I'm not sure this is going to give you what you're hoping for. I'm not hoping for anything specific, I lied. I just want to know. Linda and I weren't close, Diana continued. Our mothers, my mom and her mom, had a falling out when we were teenagers, so I didn't see much of that side of the family. But I remember Linda. She got pregnant young. 19 or 20, I think. There was a lot of drama about it in the family. Her parents were very religious, very strict. When she told them she was pregnant, they kicked her out. My chest tightened. 19, pregnant, homeless. Suddenly, giving me up seemed not just understandable but inevitable. Do you know what happened to the baby? I asked, even though I knew the answer. I heard she gave it up for adoption. That was the right choice, given everything. She was basically a kid herself, no support system, no money. Diana paused. Sarah, I think you might be that baby. I took a breath. I am. I was born March 15, 1992. Linda Hartwell is listed as my birth mother. Silence on the other end. Then, wow. Okay. So you found me. Can you tell me about her? What she's like. Another pause, longer this time. What she's like, or what she was like. Because I haven't talked to Linda in probably 15 years. Last I heard, she was living somewhere in Florida. Tampa, maybe? She got married, changed her name. I think it's Linda Brennan now, but I'm not certain. Linda Brennan. Another piece of the puzzle. Is there any way you could find out for sure? Any family members who might still be in touch with her? I can ask around, Diana said. But Sarah, I need to warn you about something. Linda, she's not an easy person. Even before all this, she was difficult. Selfish. Mean, honestly. My mom used to say Linda could charm anyone when she wanted something, but the moment you stopped being useful to her, you were dead to her. I don't know if having a baby at 19 changed her, or if the trauma made her worse, but from what I heard through the grapevine over the years, she didn't improve with age. I appreciate the honesty, I said, though my heart sank. I'll see what I can find out, Diana promised. Give me a few days. Diana came through. 5 days later, she called me back with information. Linda Brennan, née Hartwell, age 51, living in Tampa, Florida. Married to a man named Robert Brennan. 2 children, a son, 26, and a daughter, 24. Working as a real estate agent. Diana had even found her real estate company's website, which featured a professional headshot. I pulled up the website on my laptop and there she was. Linda Brennan. My birth mother. She looked like me. It's a strange feeling, seeing your face in a stranger. She had my eyes, those dark, almost black eyes. My nose. My cheekbones. Her skin was lighter than mine, but the structure was identical. Her hair, styled in a professional bob, had my curl pattern, though she'd clearly spent a fortune taming it. I stared at that photo for an hour. Zoomed in. Studied every pixel. This was the woman who'd carried me for 9 months. Who'd felt me kick. Who'd gone through labor and delivery and held me for, how long? Minutes? Hours? Before signing me away. I saved the photo to my desktop. Opened a new browser tab and found her personal Facebook profile, which was semi-public. I scrolled through photos of her life. Her husband, thick-necked and prosperous-looking. Her 2 children, my half-siblings, beautiful and well-dressed. Posts about open houses and client testimonials and casual glamour shots at expensive restaurants. She looked happy. Successful. Like someone who'd built a good life for herself. And nowhere, in any of those photos or posts, was there any mention of a first child. A daughter given up for adoption. A secret buried 32 years deep. I spent 2 weeks deciding how to make contact. Or whether to make contact at all. Part of me wanted to let it go. I had my answers, didn't I? I knew who she was, what she looked like, that she was alive and seemingly well. Maybe that was enough. Maybe I should leave her in peace, leave her family undisturbed, protect everyone from the complication of my existence. But another part of me, the louder part, needed more. I needed to hear her voice. To ask her questions. To understand, in her own words, what had happened and why. I drafted dozens of messages. Some were formal and polite. Some were emotional and pleading. Some were angry, accusatory, demanding answers I felt owed. In the end, I kept it simple. I found her business email address on her real estate website and sent the following. Dear Linda. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I was born on March 15, 1992, and was adopted at birth. According to my birth certificate, you are my biological mother. I am not reaching out to disrupt your life or to ask anything of you. I simply wanted to let you know that I exist, that I'm well, and that if you're willing, I would like the opportunity to speak with you, even if just once. I understand this email may come as a shock. Please take whatever time you need. If you prefer not to respond, I will respect that decision. Thank you for considering this. Sarah. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. Then I closed my laptop, took a sleeping pill, and tried not to think about it. She responded in less than 24 hours. The email came through Friday afternoon while I was at work, sitting in a meeting about Q3 marketing projections. My phone buzzed. I glanced down and saw the sender, Linda Brennan. I don't remember anything else from that meeting. My boss was talking, my colleagues were nodding, someone was clicking through a PowerPoint, and all I could think about was the unread message sitting in my inbox. The moment the meeting ended, I grabbed my phone and walked quickly to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and opened the email. Sarah. Thank you for reaching out. I can't say I'm surprised to hear from you, I always assumed this might happen eventually. I'm willing to speak with you, but I need to be clear about my boundaries. This was a closed adoption for a reason, and I have a life and a family now that know nothing about you. I prefer to keep it that way. That said, I understand you have questions, and I'm willing to answer them, within reason. I'll be in Boston for a work conference the first week of July. If you'd like to meet in person, we can do so discreetly. Let me know. Linda. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again, parsing every word, every phrase, every tone. I can't say I'm surprised. Had she been expecting this? Dreading it? I always assumed this might happen eventually, so she'd thought about me. At least sometimes. This was a closed adoption for a reason. What reason? Whose reason? A family now that know nothing about you, so I was a secret. An inconvenient truth. Something to be managed, not embraced. I'm willing to answer them, within reason. Within reason. What fell outside of reason? What questions were forbidden? The email was businesslike, transactional. The tone you'd use with a client, not a daughter. But she was willing to meet. That was something. I responded immediately. Linda. Thank you for responding. I would very much like to meet in person. I'll work around your schedule. Sarah. We arranged to meet on July 2nd at 2 p.m. at a cafe in downtown Boston, neutral territory, public but not too crowded. I had 4 weeks to prepare. 4 weeks to figure out what to say, what to ask, how to feel. 4 weeks is simultaneously forever and no time at all when you're preparing to meet the woman who gave birth to you and then disappeared from your life. I told exactly 3 people, my best friend Rachel, my therapist Dr. Kovac, and my mother. Not my adoptive mother, my mother. The one who'd earned the title through 3 decades of unconditional love. Rachel's reaction was immediate and protective. Do you want me to come with you? I can sit at another table, pretend I'm working on my laptop, be there in case you need an exit strategy. I considered it. The idea of having a lifeline, a witness, someone to verify that whatever happened was real and not some fever dream, was appealing. But ultimately, I declined. This felt like something I needed to do alone. Dr. Kovac's reaction was more measured. We spent 2 sessions exploring my expectations, my fears, my boundaries. What do you want from this meeting? She asked during our June appointment, her pen poised over her notepad in that way therapists do, ready to capture your revelations. I want to understand, I said. Why she gave me up. What her life was like then. If she ever thought about me. And what if the answers aren't what you want to hear? Then at least I'll know the truth. Dr. Kovac nodded slowly. Sarah, I want you to prepare yourself for the possibility that Linda may not give you closure. She may not be able to provide the narrative you're hoping for. People are complicated. Memories are unreliable. And sometimes, birth mothers have their own trauma around relinquishment that makes it difficult for them to engage authentically with the children they placed. I know, I said. But I didn't really know. Not yet. My mother's reaction surprised me. When I told her over Sunday dinner at my childhood home, sitting at the same kitchen table where I'd done homework and eaten thousands of meals, she went very still. Are you okay? I asked. She blinked, and I saw tears forming. I'm fine. I always knew this day might come. I prepared myself for it. But now that it's here, I'm scared. Scared of what? That you'll meet her and realize we're not enough. That you'll want the life you could have had with her. I reached across the table and took her hand. Her skin was soft and papery, marked with age spots I hadn't noticed before. When had my mother gotten old? Mom, that's impossible. You are my mother. She's just genetics. A stranger whose DNA I happen to share. But what if she's wonderful, my mom whispered. What if you love her? I squeezed her hand tighter. Then I'll have 2 mothers instead of 1. But no one could ever replace you. You know that, right? She nodded, wiping her eyes. But I saw the fear there, lurking beneath the surface. The fear that every adoptive parent must carry, that biology will somehow trump love. That blood will be thicker than all those years of scraped knees and bedtime stories and unconditional presence. I thought about reassuring her more, but my father walked in then with dessert, my mom's apple pie, the recipe she'd perfected over decades, and the moment shifted. We ate pie and talked about other things, lighter things, normal things. But as I drove home that night, I wondered, what if my mom was right? What if I met Linda and felt some instant, primal connection? What if all my intellectual understanding about the difference between biology and family crumbled in the face of actually sitting across from the woman who'd carried me? July 2nd arrived bright and humid, the kind of Boston summer day where the air feels thick enough to swim through. I changed my outfit 4 times before settling on jeans and a simple black top, not trying too hard, not looking sloppy. Neutral. Safe. The cafe Linda had chosen was in the financial district, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs and overpriced lattes. I arrived 15 minutes early and immediately regretted it. Sitting alone at a small table, watching the door, feeling my anxiety build with each passing minute, was torture. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink. Checked my phone compulsively. Reapplied my lip gloss. Wondered if I should have brought Rachel after all. At 2:03 p.m., she walked in. I recognized her instantly, even though she looked different from her photos. More polished. She wore a cream-colored blazer over a silk blouse, perfectly pressed pants, expensive shoes. Her hair was styled immaculately. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like money. Like success. Like someone who had their shit together. She scanned the cafe, and when her eyes landed on me, there was a flicker of recognition. She walked over, and I stood on shaking legs. "Sarah," she said. Not a question. A statement. "Linda," I replied. We didn't hug. We didn't touch. We stood there for a beat too long, two strangers who shared DNA and nothing else, before she gestured to the chair across from me. "Should I get a coffee first?" she asked. "Sure." "Yeah. Of course." She walked to the counter with the confident stride of someone who knew how to take up space in the world. I sat back down, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. When she returned with an iced latte, we sat in silence for a moment, both of us, I think, unsure how to begin. Finally, she spoke. "You look like me." It's strange, seeing my features in someone else's face. "I thought the same thing when I saw your photo," I said. Another silence. This was excruciating. "So," Linda said, her tone shifting to something more businesslike, "what would you like to know?" I'd rehearsed this. I'd made a list of questions in my phone. But sitting there, faced with the actual moment, all my preparation evaporated. "Why did you give me up?" The question came out raw, unpolished. Linda took a sip of her latte. "Because I was 19 years old, broke, and had been kicked out of my house. I couldn't take care of a baby. It was the only option that made sense." "Did you ever consider keeping me?" "No." The answer was immediate, unflinching. I knew from the moment I found out I was pregnant that I couldn't raise a child. I wasn't equipped for it. Financially, emotionally, practically, I had nothing to offer. The bluntness stung, but I appreciated it more than I would have appreciated platitudes. What about the father? What about him? Who was he? Did he know about me? Linda's jaw tightened slightly. He was a mistake. A one-night thing. I told him I was pregnant. He offered to pay for an abortion and then disappeared. I never saw him again. Do you know his name? Anything about him? I knew his first name. I don't remember it now. It's been 32 years, Sarah. That part of my life is ancient history. Ancient history. That's what I was to her. Ancient history. Did you hold me? I asked, my voice smaller now. After I was born? For the first time, something flickered across her face. Not quite emotion, but something. Briefly. They brought you to me for a few minutes. You were small. You cried a lot. I signed the papers and they took you away. And you never wanted to find me? Never wondered what happened to me? Linda met my eyes directly. I assumed you were fine. That was the point of the adoption, to give you a better life than I could provide. I trusted that your parents were good people. And clearly, they were. You seem well-adjusted. Successful. That's all I needed to know. Her logic was airtight, clinical, devoid of sentiment. Part of me understood it. Part of me wanted to scream. Can I ask you something that might be uncomfortable? I said. You can ask. I can't promise I'll answer. Did you receive any money? For the adoption? The question hung in the air like smoke. Linda's expression shifted, not quite defensive, but guarded. Why are you asking that? Because I want to know the truth. All of it. Not just the sanitized version. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and checked the time in a gesture that felt like a warning. "We're on a schedule. Don't waste my time." "Your parents paid for my medical expenses," she finally said. "That's standard in private adoptions." "Is that all?" "What exactly are you implying, Sarah?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly, did you receive any money beyond medical expenses?" "I don't see how that's relevant." "It's relevant to me." Linda set down her coffee with deliberate precision. "Listen, I don't know what you've heard or what you're fishing for, but the adoption was handled by a lawyer. Everything was legal. Your parents wanted a baby. I needed to place a baby. The lawyer facilitated that arrangement. That's it." "But did you receive money?" "Why does it matter?" "Because I want to know if my adoption was a transaction or a sacrifice." The words came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't regret them. Linda's face hardened. "You know what? Yes. I received money. The lawyer gave me $10,000. It was compensation for carrying you for 9 months, for going through labor, for the disruption to my life." "Is that what you wanted to hear?" $10,000. The number hung between us, heavy and undeniable. "You sold me," I said quietly. "I placed you for adoption and received financial compensation, which is perfectly legal in certain circumstances," Linda corrected, her voice sharp. "Don't be dramatic. $10,000. That's what I was worth to you. That's not fair. Isn't it?" I felt something rising in my chest, anger, grief, something volcanic. "You got paid $10,000 to give me away." "I got paid $10,000 because your parents had money and I didn't, and there was a lawyer who knew how to work the system. I was 19, Sarah. I was sleeping on a friend's couch. That money kept me off the street. It let me start over. So yes, I took it. And I don't regret it." There it was. The truth I'd known was coming but still wasn't prepared to hear. "You don't regret it," I repeated. "No, I don't. Not even a little bit?" Linda leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Why would I? That money allowed me to get an apartment, go to community college, build a life. I met my husband 2 years later. I had my son when I was 25, on purpose, when I was ready, when I could provide for him. I built a successful career. I gave my children a stable home. None of that would have been possible if I'd kept you." Each word was a small knife. Not dramatic. Just precise and cutting. "So I was the sacrifice for your better life," I said. "You were placed with a family that could give you everything I couldn't. That's not a sacrifice. That's a gift. You should be thanking me." I actually laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Thanking you?" "Yes. Look at yourself, Sarah. You're educated, employed, put together. You had 2 parents who loved you, a stable home, opportunities one never could have given you. I made the right choice. The fact that I was compensated for it doesn't change that." "But you kept the others," I said, my voice shaking now. "You had 2 more children. You raised them. So clearly, you could have been a mother. You just didn't want to be my mother. I was 26 and married when I had Ryan. 28 when I had Jessica. Financially stable. Emotionally mature. In a completely different situation than when I was pregnant with you. You're comparing apples to oranges. They're your children and I was your child, and you chose to raise them and not me. That's not apples to oranges. That's just rejection." Linda's expression shifted to something colder. "I don't owe you a mother, Sarah. I gave birth to you. That's where my obligation ended. Your parents were your mother and father. They're the ones who owed you everything, and it sounds like they delivered. So this wounded child routine is misplaced." The words hit like a slap. Wounded child routine? I echoed. Yes. You're sitting here, 32 years old, crying about being adopted. Trying to make me feel guilty for making a rational decision that benefited everyone? It's childish. You got a good life. I got to move forward with mine. Your siblings don't need the complication of a secret half-sister. Everyone is better off with the status quo. Your other children don't know about me? No. And I'd like to keep it that way. Why? Because it's none of their business. Because it's ancient history. Because I don't want to explain to my 26-year-old son that he has a half-sister I gave away. It serves no purpose except to create drama and questions I don't want to answer. I stared at her, this woman who looked so much like me but was so fundamentally different. So I'm your dirty secret. You're not my anything, Sarah. That's the point. We're biologically connected. That's it. I don't feel some mystical maternal bond with you. I don't lie awake at night wondering what you're doing. You were a pregnancy I couldn't manage, so I found a solution. End of story. I should have left then. I should have stood up, walked out, maintained my dignity. But I needed to push further, to find something, anything, that resembled human feeling in this woman. Did you ever love me? I asked. Even for a second? Linda sighed like I was exhausting her. Love? I was 19, pregnant, terrified, and homeless. I didn't have the luxury of feelings. I had to survive. That's not an answer. That's the only answer you're going to get. Do you feel anything now? Looking at me? Knowing I'm your biological daughter? She studied me with the same expression she probably used when evaluating properties for her clients. Assessing. Calculating. I feel curious, I suppose. Interested to see how you turned out. Satisfied that the adoption worked as intended. But maternal love? No. I don't feel that. I don't know how to feel that for you. The honesty was brutal. But in a twisted way, I preferred it to lies or manufactured sentiment. Can I ask you something? Linda said, glancing at her phone again. What did you think was going to happen here? Did you think we'd meet and I'd fall apart crying, begging for your forgiveness? That I'd want to build a relationship with you? I don't know what I thought, I admitted. I just needed to know who you were. Well, now you know. I'm a real estate agent in Tampa. I have a husband and 2 children. I'm successful and happy. I don't spend my time regretting decisions I made when I was basically a kid myself. And I don't owe you an apology or a relationship or anything else just because I gave birth to you. I never said you owed me anything. Didn't you? This whole meeting has been you fishing for some confession of regret or trauma. Some validation that I think about you, that I suffered, that giving you up haunted me. But it didn't. It doesn't. It was a practical decision that worked out well for everyone involved. I felt something crumbling inside me. Not my love for my parents, that was solid, untouchable. But some fantasy I hadn't realized I was holding on to. The fantasy that my birth mother had thought about me over the years. That she'd wondered if she made the right choice. That I'd mattered to her, even a little. Okay, I said quietly. Thank you for your honesty. Linda nodded, satisfied that we'd reached conclusion. I hope this gives you whatever you were looking for. I really do. But I need to be clear, this is where our interaction ends. I don't want ongoing contact. I don't want you reaching out to my family. I'd appreciate it if you respected my boundaries. I understand. Good. She stood, collecting her purse. I have another appointment. Take care of yourself, Sarah. And just like that, she walked out of the cafe and out of my life, leaving me sitting there with an untouched coffee and a heart full of answers I never wanted. I sat in that cafe for another 30 minutes after she left. Not because I wanted to, but because I physically couldn't make my legs work. I stared at the table, at the water ring from my forgotten coffee, at the crumbs from someone else's pastry, and tried to process what had just happened. She'd sold me for $10,000 and didn't regret it. The money itself wasn't the issue, not really. If she'd said, yes, I took money, and I felt guilty about it every day since, that would have been different. If she'd shown even a flicker of conflict or doubt or sadness, I could have worked with that. But she felt nothing. Less than nothing. She felt inconvenienced that I'd found her. Eventually, I paid for my coffee and walked out into the humid afternoon. I walked for hours through Boston, no destination in mind, just moving because stillness felt impossible. I ended up at the public garden, sitting on a bench near the lagoon, watching the swan boats glide by with tourists who looked happy and uncomplicated. I called Rachel. Told her everything. She said all the right things. She sounds like a narcissist, you deserve so much better. Her inability to feel doesn't reflect on your worth, but the words felt distant, like they were coming from underwater. I called my mother. Just to hear her voice. How did it go? She asked, the worry evident even through the phone. It went, I said. She's not a good person, Mom. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Don't be. You were right all along. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And she never showed up. She never wanted to. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then, do you want to come home? I can make dinner. Home. My childhood home. The place where I was chosen and wanted and loved unconditionally. Yeah, I said, my voice breaking. I'd like that. In the weeks that followed, I went through stages. Anger. Grief. Numbness. A weird kind of relief. Dr. Kovac helped me untangle it all in our sessions. What you're mourning, she explained, isn't the relationship with Linda, because that never existed. You're mourning the fantasy of what that relationship could have been. The idea that there was someone out there who had thought about you, wondered about you, regretted giving you up. Learning that fantasy was false is a kind of death. She was right. I'd built an entire narrative in my head over 32 years, a narrative where my birth mother was tragic and wounded and loving from afar. Where the adoption had broken her heart but she'd done it anyway for my benefit. Where she was noble and sacrificial. The real Linda was none of those things. She was pragmatic, cold, transactional. She'd made a business decision at 19 that worked out well for her, and she'd never looked back. And somehow, that was almost liberating. Because if she felt nothing, then I didn't have to feel guilty about my happiness with my real family. I didn't have to worry that I was betraying her by loving my parents. I didn't have to carry the weight of her supposed suffering. She was fine. She'd always been fine. She'd taken the $10,000 and built a life and moved on completely. And now, so could I. About 6 weeks after the meeting, I filed a request through the adoption lawyer for all documentation related to my adoption. It took some legal maneuvering, closed adoption records aren't easy to access, but eventually, I received a thick envelope containing photocopies of the original paperwork. And there it was, in black and white. A check dated March 18, 1992. 3 days after I was born, made out to Linda Catherine Hartwell for exactly $10,000. The memo line read, adoption expenses. There were other documents too. A contract between Linda and the lawyer, outlining terms. Medical records showing she'd received prenatal care starting in her second trimester. A notarized statement where she relinquished all parental rights. Everything was legal. Everything was documented. Everything was cold and businesslike and devoid of emotion. I kept the check photocopy. I'm not sure why. Maybe as proof. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe because seeing that number, $10,000, made it real in a way the conversation hadn't. That's what I was worth to the woman who gave birth to me. $10,000. And the strangest part? I wasn't hurt by it anymore. I was just done. I never contacted Linda again. I respected her boundaries, not because I owed her anything, but because I had nothing left to say to her. But I did reach out to Diana Martin, my second cousin who'd helped me find Linda in the first place. I thanked her and asked if she'd be open to staying in touch. She said yes. We've had coffee a few times. She's told me stories about our extended family, showed me old photos, filled in some of the genealogical blanks. It's not a close relationship, but it's something. A thread connecting me to that side of my biology without all the toxicity of Linda herself. My relationship with my parents. My real parents, deepened after all this. My mom stopped worrying that I'd love her less. We talk more openly now about adoption, about how it shaped me, about the loss that sits at the center of it even when the outcome is good. Because that's the thing I've learned, adoption is complicated. It's not all tragedy and it's not all triumph. It can be both simultaneously. I can acknowledge that being adopted involved loss. Loss of my birth family, loss of genetic continuity, loss of the fantasy of Linda, while also being grateful for the family I gained. And Linda? I hope she's happy. I genuinely do. Not because I forgive her or feel warmth toward her, but because her happiness has nothing to do with me, just like my happiness has nothing to do with her. She made a choice 32 years ago that she doesn't regret. Fine. I can live with that. Because I know something she'll never understand. Being someone's biological mother doesn't make you a mother. Showing up does. Loving unconditionally does. Staying when things are hard does. My mother, the woman who taught me to read, who sat with me through heartbreaks, who showed up to every play and graduation and normal Tuesday, is my mother. Not because of biology or money or legal documents. Because she chose me. Every single day. And in the end, that's worth more than any price tag Linda could have put on me. I found my birth mother. She sold me for $10,000 and has no regrets. And you know what? Neither do I. Not anymore. But there's one more thing I need to tell you. One more piece of this story that I've been holding back. About 3 months after that meeting with Linda, I got a Facebook message. From a name I didn't recognize, Jessica Brennan. My half-sister. My hand shook as I opened it. Sarah, I hope this message doesn't freak you out. My mom doesn't know I'm contacting you. I found out about you by accident. I was helping her organize some files and I found paperwork from a lawyer, documents about an adoption from 1992. I confronted her and she told me everything. Well, her version of everything. I want to meet you. I know this is complicated and I know Mom said she didn't want any contact, but you're my sister. I have a brother, Ryan, who I haven't told yet because I'm not sure how he'll react. But I need to know you. If you're willing. Please respond. Jessica. I stared at that message for 2 days before responding. Part of me wanted to respect Linda's boundaries, to let sleeping dogs lie. But another part, the bigger part, recognized that Jessica was reaching out on her own terms. She was an adult making her own choice. This wasn't about Linda anymore. We met 2 weeks later at a coffee shop in Providence, halfway between our two cities. Jessica looked like me too. Same eyes, same nose, but softer somehow. She had Linda's features but with a warmth Linda had never possessed. She was 24, working as a graphic designer, funny and self-deprecating and kind. We talked for 4 hours. About everything. Our childhoods, our careers, our lives. The similarities were eerie. We both loved the same obscure indie bands, both struggled with anxiety, both had this habit of organizing things by color. I can't believe she never told us, Jessica said, stirring her third coffee. Like, I understand why she gave you up at 19. I get that. But to just pretend you never existed? To never mention you once? That's cold even for her. Even for her? I asked. Jessica grimaced. Mom's not exactly warm. She's successful and she's driven and she provides for us, but emotionally? She's like a locked safe. Ryan and I used to joke that she shows more affection to her clients than to us. Something clicked. So she's always been like this? With you too? Oh yeah. I mean, she's never been abusive or anything. But maternal? No. She's more like a very efficient project manager who happens to be related to us. I felt a strange sense of validation hearing this. It wasn't just me. It wasn't something about me that made me unlovable. Linda was simply incapable of the kind of emotional depth that motherhood requires. Have you told Ryan? I asked. Not yet. I wanted to meet you first. Make sure you were real and not some scam artist. She smiled. You're real. I'm real. Good. Because I've always wanted a sister. I love Ryan, but he's kind of a finance dude bro, you know? All crypto and CrossFit and Joe Rogan podcasts. You seem actually interesting. I laughed. A real laugh. The first genuine one in months. Jessica and I have stayed in touch. We text regularly. We've met up several times. She introduced me to Ryan eventually. He was confused at first but came around. He's exactly as she described, finance dude bro, but decent underneath the cryptocurrency nonsense. Neither of them has told Linda that we're in contact. It's not out of fear, exactly. More like, why bother? She made her position clear. This relationship isn't for her. It's for us. And here's what I've realized, Linda gave me something valuable, even if she didn't mean to. She gave me clarity. She showed me exactly who she was. No illusions, no false hope, no what-ifs. And in doing so, she freed me. I don't wonder about her anymore. I don't fantasize about alternative timelines where she kept me. I don't carry the weight of her hypothetical suffering. Instead, I have Jessica. And Ryan. And Diana. And most importantly, I have my parents, the ones who chose me, who raised me, who loved me unconditionally for 32 years and counting. Linda sold me for $10,000 and doesn't regret it. And somewhere along the way, I realized, that says everything about her and nothing about me. I was never the problem. I was never unworthy. I was never too much or not enough. I was just born to the wrong woman at the wrong time. And then, 3 days later, I was born again, into the arms of the right parents at exactly the right time. That's the story I choose to carry now. Not the one about being sold, but the one about being chosen. Not the one about rejection, but the one about belonging. Linda can have her $10,000 and her unburdened conscience and her secret-free life. I have something better, a family that actually wanted me. And honestly, I got the better deal. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. Your support means everything. And drop a comment, I want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.